Thoro-Matic was a Chicago-based manufacturer of commercial industrial vacuum cleaners and floor machines like floor buffers and burnishers. And in fact, the service vacuum that I use for the last few years is an old Thoro-Matic, and the thing's bulletproof. It definitely earns its keep. Well, in the 1980s and 90s, they got in on the central vacuum game when residential central vacs were a very popular product. And when the MD central vacuum looked like this and was just beginning to be sold in the Chicagoland area around 1980, Thoro-Matic copied the design essentially and came up with their own machine. This is about a 1983 model. This is private labeled under the Airflow name, but it was built by Thoro-Matic, and you can see they're very, very similar but not quite identical. Some small construction differences do exist. This is a triple motor machine. They made them in single, dual, and triple. This one was traded in. It's missing its bag and filters, but you can see when one motor went out, somebody tried to duct tape over it, and they tried to keep using it, which didn't work all that well. Now you can still actually get the elastic top bags. The MD Hyperflow bags do fit this, as well as an MD cloth bag if you need a new one. You can still get the motors. They bought their motors from Amatec Lam, just like MD. In the 1990s, the machines looked more like this. I'd say late 80s into the 90s. You can see that bottom is slightly taller, even though they use the same motors. This one happens to be a single motor. You can see one reset switch and spots for two others. So this same enclosure, the machine looked exactly the same, whether it was a single motor, a dual, or a triple. And this actually is very well constructed. You can see that elastic top bag and the cloth permanent bag. One unique feature was that you could leave the canister on the wall and unsnap the motor compartment like that for servicing. But I tend to find it easier just to take the whole thing and flip it upside down, which is how you do the motors on an MD unit. Now taking this off, I've already taken the screws out of here. Oh, here, we've got one more. They kind of overbuilt these, which I admire, but I have to imagine it made them pretty expensive to produce. So you can see in this case, it's a single motor, but they could fit 2 and even 3 motors in parallel in this same enclosure. And they have this big heavy motor plate that divides the working air exhaust from the cooling air. It doesn't separate the cooling air intake from the cooling air exhaust very well, but it does isolate one part from the other. There's a gasket. Now this really isn't necessary. These motors can just as easily sit and have their working air and cooling air exhaust kind of commingling, as long as the cooling air intake is separated, which the MD always did a better job of. But the other thing on a Thoro-Matic is you can see they gave these little rubber booties over the wire nuts, which is quite the thorough detail. So beautifully engineered, all the lacing on the wires, the way they zip tied it all together. I have to admire that. One thing I thought was always cool was their brochure. I have an original Thoro-Matic brochure here. The residential vacuum connection. And I love this scene here with the T21 and the old hose and an airflow inlet screwed to the side of a brick fireplace where you would never have a central vacuum inlet. And you can see that it's not actually installed. It's just been screwed there for the picture because that hose is not inserted. It's just resting. And I love that this brochure, she had these little vignettes where the same model is wearing a different outfit to clean a different room in the house. Here's her in the kitchen using a carpet tool. I don't know if that's carpeting made to look like wood planks or what. And the bedroom doing the blinds, and in the living room another fireplace, another hairdo, another outfit, and that old T21 again. And that hose, so I've seen some systems that still have the original Thoro-Matic hose. It's like a 1.25" version of a truck mount carpet cleaner hose, very stiff, actually crush proof. And these little cute drawings. Of course, like every other central vacuum manufacturer, they talked about how quiet the system was. Well, back in those days, it was quiet because this was outside the living area, and these units actually were extremely noisy. They sounded like a plane taking off, but they were quiet in the house at least. And here's so the only one I've ever seen is this design, which is what we have here. And they show it mounted way high up on the wall, which doesn't make any sense. Top emptying units should be mounted lower, but you can see they made a mini top emptying unit here. They also made a bottom emptying bagless unit here, neither one of which I've ever seen. So you can see their mini unit would be the M100. I only ever run into usually the TM2 is the most common, and then the TM3, there's a bunch of those out there. The TM1 with single motor, this is, I think, the only one I've ever seen. Not the greatest performance with only one of those motors, but the M100 and the Cyclonic TMC1, which you see the cutaway of there, I've never seen. Oh, and here's my favorite. So here's the same lady in a bikini vacuuming around her jacuzzi. So there's some interesting things. First of all, if you're vacuuming around your jacuzzi, are you in a bikini as if like you're just about to use the thing and better vacuum around it first? Or is she okay? Water pickup capability is optional with the Thoro-Matic built-in system. Maybe this is suggesting, oh darn, we got water all over the floor, let's get the vacuum out and hook all that up, and let's not even bother to change clothes. Of course, this is speculating because as the owner of neither a jacuzzi nor a bikini, but several Thoro-Matic central vacuums, I've never found myself in this exact situation, so I can't say for sure. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this quick little look. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy vacuuming.